Welcome back to another episode of Under Further Review. Steve here with Larry this week. Garrett was sleeping on the job, but yeah, we have three, I think, fun topics coming your way today. And one's a pretty urgent one we got to talk about just because there's a lot of developments that happen over preseason football. So we got to stay on top of it. Number two is actually, I think number two is just as urgent as the first topic. And then number three is just a fun thing that we thought we would go through. We want to implement a lot of segments in this podcast. So this is a fun one. And we urge you to join along because the third segment is going to be fun. It's going to be towards the end of the episode. So stick around if you want to hear it. And I got to throw the disclaimer out there. Follow along. Social media at Under Further Review Pod. And then we're also on YouTube, which our subscribers have jumped probably from around 100 to 131 within a matter of, I would say, 4 or 5 days since the last episode came out. So that's a pretty good number. If we can continue that, it's only going to help this podcast grow. It will help us get guests, and it will help us just continue to get more eyes on the podcast because I feel like we're having quality conversations. We've all been around football for a long time, but let's jump into it, Larry. So the Browns made a big decision. Obviously, Deshaun Watson was picked over Shedeur Sanders as the starting quarterback in Cleveland. And I think that surprised a lot of people. I think there's a lot of wide eyes in Cleveland right now just because of the news that broke. But this is Todd Monken's team. I thought there would be like a breath of fresh air from Todd Monken, not going with the norm of like, hey, we have this quarterback who's a veteran. He looked fantastic years ago. He's a lot of money, so we really don't want to forfeit all the money that we owe him. I just thought he would come in and try to do his own thing, but this just shows that sometimes it's not the coaches making the decisions. And I joke around with like baseball because I feel like managers are puppets in the MLB. They pretty much go by the analytics department and what the front office says, who should bat where, what starting pitcher should go today. And managers are really just there for in-game decisions. And I didn't really think it was happening in the NFL, but this tells me different. I honestly, like, at the end of the day, like, you really want the veteran guys like the Sean Paytons of the world with the Broncos. I'm sure he's making all the shots that are called, and like Jim Harbaugh, and I'm sure John Harbaugh with the Giants, and the list goes on. Andy Reid, but they probably put somewhere in their contract they don't want any interference with the decisions that they're making with their roster. But Todd Monken, on the other hand, who's been an offensive coordinator, trying to get back into the head coaching ranks, like, I feel like he'd be a little more lenient with teams making that decision. What was your thoughts on the whole thing? Like when that news broke, because I know we were texting the night before and we kind of talked about, yeah, it should be Shedeur Sanders' job because I think there was a notification that went out that said the Browns were going to be making a decision as early as Monday, and they did. Yep. And they did. And we were texting and we were saying Shedeur Sanders, that's his job, especially after what Deshaun Watson said during his press conference. But then, boom, Watson has the job. What was your initial thoughts when it first broke?
I mean, obviously surprised, disappointed. Probably the best way to go with it. I think, everybody here, anybody that's going to be listening to this or listening to any other commentators out there, ESPN, Pat McAfee, whoever it is, I think everybody was on the same page where we saw that interview. We heard what Deshaun had to say, and everybody right there and then was like, this is Shedeur's job. This is Shedeur's job. It is signed, sealed, and delivered. And I talked about it again the day after the night it happened. And then, on Monday, come to find out that it's a complete opposite and getting the opportunity again. And I think it comes down to what you just said there as well. We like to try to forget, it's a kid's game. Everybody likes to have a lot of fun. Grown men getting paid to play football, but it's a business. It is a business, and this was a business decision. Deshaun Watson got paid quite a bit of money. I want to say, what was it? It was $230 million guaranteed. It's absurd. It's a lot of money. And the Browns are not giving up on it yet. They want to, try to get everything they can out of this horrendous contract. Yeah, man, things to go into. It's like Watson's contract can't be the reason he plays, but I think that's the only reason why he is playing. It's not like he's shown anything in the preseason that he's an elite quarterback anymore. He's literally bottom of the barrel. He's going to be in the conversation of, second, third, 30th best QBs in the league. And it's just a matter of time. One of the things I saw today, which would be super smart and I would appreciate more, is that The Browns travel to Jacksonville and Tampa Bay. Both games are away in the beginning of the season. Probably going to lose both of those games. It's not going to look the best. And here comes Shedeur, home opener. It's going to get the fans going. Hey, we gave Deshaun one more shot. We tried saving this contract. It was just not there. And then it's going to be Shedeur's show to go. But again, this was not what they were doing on the field whatsoever. This was a business decision because of the money that was paid.
Yeah. And don't you wish with scheduling purposes, the league would do that more often? Like if you're going to play two Florida teams, then just keep them in Florida for the 2 weeks. It's kind of what the NFL did with the Jaguars a few years ago when they scheduled 2 straight London games, I think.
Yeah.
And they let them just stay there. It's just nice for traveling purposes because sometimes that can get brutal. And if you're going to play in Florida 2 consecutive weeks, I'm sure you can find a local high school field to practice on for like a week or so. But from the Watson standpoint, I I had a few thoughts on this just because from a talent standpoint alone, Watson was once anointed the next big quarterback. He was the guy when he was with the Texans, and I think
Sure.
he did. I have the stats here. 2018, 4,165 yards, 26 touchdowns, and just 9 interceptions. But his big year was 2020, 4,823 yards and 33 touchdowns, which is just a phenomenal stat. What's that?
Those are stud numbers. Anybody would love that. Their franchise quarterback.
Yeah, and I think when you're sitting down and you were thinking about what Watson could have became, he was supposed to be the Pat Mahomes. He was kind of the guy that Peyton Manning and Tom Brady were going to hand the torch off to, and he was the next guy. And the Texans had that playoff team in place that led by on defense J.J. Watt, and it just felt like the ceiling was so high for this team. And I remember hearing reports nonstop about how Watson was the first one in the locker room. He was the last one to leave, and he was always watching film. And everybody just had such nice things to say about Deshaun Watson. And it was all the way up until 2020 when he had his legal issues. And we don't have to go too deep into that. I know it factors in a little bit, but this is just the same recycled BS that we see from every Browns coach that's taken over from this Browns organization for 6 years. And they're all afraid of that big contract, which I get the first few years. Like you try it out, you took a chance on the man, but it's not like going against the norm here. It's hoping that whatever he had with the Texans before 2020, you can squeeze a little bit of that juice out, and hopefully he can keep this team together for the season. Because if you think about what the Browns are every single year, a great defense and some of the best, some of the best defenses in the league. And now what are they? They're still a great defense. Even after trading the face of your franchise, Myles Garrett, you got Jared Verse back. He's a pretty good player.
Yeah, bring in Verse.
Yeah, he's good. I remember watching him in Florida State. I was like, this guy's going to be a freak in the NFL. And the defense is still in place. And now you think about how well the Browns have drafted outside of drafting 2 quarterbacks last year. That was kind of nonsense with Dylan Gabriel and Shedeur Sanders. Shedeur Sanders was always the clear choice, in my opinion. And I think there was a lot of disrespect during that draft because the entire time, and this is where it shows that, what the front office is thinking is completely different than what some of these draft analysts are thinking, because they had him graded as a first-round talent all the way up. I remember Mel Kiper almost throwing a hissy fit the day it happened when
he did throw a hissy fit.
It was gold. It was TV gold when he was getting upset like that. But I don't know. There is signs last season that Shedeur Sanders showed when he was put out there, and he was the last option. I think they went through 3 or 4 quarterbacks before they got to Shedeur Sanders last season. But when he finally got out there, he showed some life. I know the stats don't show it. It was 7 touchdowns, 10 interceptions, but sometimes the stats don't tell the full story. And what he was able to do on that field and the energy he brought to the locker room. Today, the Browns failed, or I should say Monday. Monday, the Browns failed not only the fans, because the fans have been booing Watson. They booed him. Yeah. They booed him when he got injured last season. They are booing him right now during preseason. They do not want Watson on the field, and it's showing that it's starting to have a wear and tear type situation with Watson because of what he said this weekend during his press conference. But the team, they're not going to come out there and say it, but I guarantee you 75% of that locker room wanted Shedeur Sanders as their starting quarterback, and they didn't get it this week.
Yeah, I mean, that locker room is obviously divided right now, just as is everybody else. I mean, there's going to be certain people out there that are going to have to just defend what the decision is being made. But again, that's why for the last, 4 decades, this team has just been a laughingstock. It's a dumpster fire. I mean, it's every year it feels like it's just something new, but it's something new, but it's not. It's, hey, like you said before, they have a really good defense, but it's going to be coming up to the quarterback. What quarterback is going to be starting this week? Who's going to be the decision? Who's going to be the guy that's going to lead us to the promised land? They had that guy when it came to Baker Mayfield. All right, and then they laughed him out of the building. That was lost Stefanski as well. He's one of my least favorite coaches. I'm not a big Kevin Stefanski guy, and you can see why. I mean, he was a big advocate for Deshaun Watson. He hated the Shedeur Sanders pick. Like we said before, when it comes to Shedeur Sanders and that situation, it all comes down to just anything in life, the media. The media just trashing and bashing. This guy's too flashy. This guy's got too much to say. He hasn't done anything in the league yet. It's like, okay, but he has done stuff on the field. He has shown the components to be a high valued pick, which again, like you just said, a lot of the analysts had him as a high value pick. And then, I think a lot of the teams, a lot of franchises in the NFL just didn't want to deal with the headache of the social media and of everybody's outlook towards it. But when it comes to Watson, man, it's real simple. He's on a short leash. It's just a matter of time before Shedeur does get the starting job back, and it's going to be his to keep. I think he did show promise last season. People forget, and don't get me wrong, I know there's a big asterisk on it. He was a Pro Bowler. He was in the Pro Bowl last year. Which is kind of wild. It also pisses me off a lot because obviously my man Jordan Love, again, we had this huge argument. I'm not going to do this right now because, it's going to stay family friendly right now. Shedeur Sanders was a Pro Bowl quarterback last year. Jordan Love is yet to be in the Pro Bowl.
Wait, does that mean Shedeur Sanders is in the top 10 and Love isn't?
No, 100%. Shedeur Sanders is better than Josh Allen. That's how it would go. Wow, just kidding. That is not true whatsoever. Shedeur Sanders is nowhere near those types of levels. But again, that just shows how much of a joke the Pro Bowl is as well. Shedeur is going to get an opportunity. It's going to be his job to keep. It's going to be crazy when, it's already going to be that crazy. We come, week 8, week 10, when all of a sudden the Watson thing hasn't worked. The Shedeur Sanders project hasn't worked. Now we got Dillon Gabriel in there. That's not going to work. Then who knows comes off the bench, and then season's over, Browns it again, hoping somebody's going to come save the franchise, with it being an Arch Manning or whoever else is going to be out there with this QB class coming up. But Browns are just a dumpster fire. It's that simple.
Yeah, you said two great things there, and I think you hit the nail on the head. The first part was the mentality and the mannerisms of Shedeur Sanders and how he presents himself. He's very cocky. I'll never forget, it was the Colorado versus Nebraska game, I think a few years ago. And he pretty much said during the coin toss, we're going to whoop you guys, or he said something along those lines. I don't know the exact words, but Nebraska ended up beating them that day. And his whole college career has been like that. And I think he continues to say things like that during the NFL. Although I think he
put the in his mouth.
Yeah, it is worrisome. But the second part that you said is like next year's NFL draft. And people always say don't punt on a season. But that's essentially what the Browns were doing, because when you talk about like a Myles Garrett alone probably gets you a few more wins just because of what he's capable of doing from the edge. And last season, the sack record, just unreal. It motivates the team in other ways as well. But Garrett has, I think, requested trades in the past. He requested trades before they gave him that extension, and he was paid the most money as an edge rusher in the history of the NFL, which rightfully so. But
so he said, "Oh, I just want to win.
Yeah,
I just want to win. Yeah, until that money's there, and then then we have no time when we're playing."
But I think the reports that came out when he got traded to the Rams were he didn't request a trade. I think the Browns were just saying, "Hey, like we don't see a future of successful football in the next year or two. So we're just going to give up this deep, edge rusher who has had a fantastic career with us, probably enough where he, outside of if the Rams get a Super Bowl this year and he puts together a few quality seasons, there's a good chance he's probably going into the Hall of Fame as a Cleveland Brown. But last season didn't show it, but if you talk about the age of football players and how long their, careers are and their prime specifically, Garrett, if you look at history itself and the average football player, Garrett's starting to teeter towards that wrong side of the prime. So why not get as much as you can? You got Jarrett Verse. They got draft picks, right? I don't know what the exact trade package was, but I'm assuming they received draft picks. So, but the other thing is, to me, the reason that they went in this direction was we've already exhausted the Deshaun Watson project, and his confidence seems like it's probably out the window at this point. So why not do exactly what you're saying? Start him for those first 2 Florida games. Hey, if you happen to win one game, then you're in the plus with Deshaun Watson and you continue to see where it takes you. But if you lose both games, now you're saying like maybe Shedeur Sanders, that noise definitely is going to get a lot louder. So now we bring in Shedeur Sanders. But if it was vice versa, where you start the season with Shedeur Sanders and you go 0-5 or something, or 1-4, whatever it may be, and you end up benching Shedeur Sanders for Deshaun Watson, now you're talking about someone who's a young quarterback whose confidence is out the window. You're done with Shedeur Sanders' project in Cleveland, because look at Anthony Richardson with the Colts. They kept doing this mind games where they would start him off or they would put him as the top of the depth chart. He would play. I think the first season he got injured, but the second season I think they benched him. And now look where he's at, where every season he's a topic of, is he going to get traded? Will he ever even play again? So it's unfortunate. It's the Trey Lance situation. There's so many other quarterbacks we can probably name over time that fall into this category. Because realistically, Sanders, the talent's there. Like, he was really good on a Colorado team that never had a defense and never had a running game. So he pretty much had to do it by himself with Travis Hunter. It was a 2-man wrecking crew, essentially. So I understand why they had a losing season, but I also understand why they were able to get to a bowl game and have one of the best Colorado seasons.
Yeah, and they had some big time wins as well.
Yeah.
Which is nice. But again, it's just the story of the Browns as well. It's always going to be, we're a quarterback away. We're going to have this. They have the defense. They've done a good draft. They've done good in the draft as well, though. They've surrounded a young team. They do just need to find that one piece, and it is the most important piece on any NFL team, and that is a quarterback.
Yeah.
So again, I also agree. I think that Shedeur can do this, but this is 1 year. This is it for either one of these guys. And again, I'm talking, you got to win 11 games. Maybe I'll give it 10. You got to win 10 games. You got to be up there in the stats and show that you can be a high-powered offense. If not, they are going to be drafting a quarterback next season.
No,
it is inevitable. It has to happen, especially with where this class is at.
Especially,
but that's all I got on that. I can't spend too much time on the Browns and their dumpster fire of a squad.
Well, the last thing I will say is I cannot, like, this talent that's around them, and they drafted 2 receivers. They have Junkins at running back. They have Fannin at tight end, and just a boatload of receivers who should get their chance to pop off in this league. So endless possibilities. I just don't know who's going to be thrown to them. And honestly, at this point, like, this year was supposed to be the QB class with Cade Klubnik and Aller and who else? Mendoza wasn't really in the hype area, but Nussmeier. This was supposed to be the big class. I am pretty confident next year's class, as long as they all enter, is going to be a really strong one. Now you're talking about Arch Manning might go back, but he might not. Julian Sayans of the world, the Darian Mensahs from Miami, and the list goes on. It's just 10 or 15 quarterbacks deep that if they have a good college season, they could end up in the first round. Dante Moore from Oregon. So there's a lot of possibilities. But let's move on to topic 2. So
yeah,
the big news I would argue this was probably bigger than what just happened with the Browns naming their
I
quarterback.
agreed.
So Ole Miss specifically has two players returning to the college ranks. So they have the tight end that was playing with the Browns actually, and there was a news story that came out that Lane Kiffin maybe reached out to Todd Monken, but now Kiffin's saying he didn't do that. So who's telling the truth? Is it Monken or is it Kiffin? And then
Yeah.
they had a D lineman that was on that Ole Miss team from last year that made that playoff run that's returning now. So the tight end cleared waivers today, and now we're just waiting to hear about the D lineman. But there's some things that came out that have to factor into the story. First off, Lane Kiffin specifically said, if they're not playing for us, then they're playing for someone else in the country. I don't know if that's necessarily true. I think this was a Lane Kiffin push where he's reaching out to guys that are probably fourth on the depth chart or might make the practice squad. And he's saying, hey, we can try to get you a year of eligibility. But I don't know what happens behind the scenes. And then there's two conferences that come into play, the Big Ten and the ACC, and they specifically come out and say, we are not allowing professional football players to return to the college ranks. And that's the way it should be, where if you declare for the draft, because it used to be the moment you declare for the draft, you were done, your eligibility is done. But if you declare for the draft, if you hear your name called during draft day, or you sign a contract and then you suit up for that team and play a preseason game, then those are three extremes right there. You should be done. And the SEC is a joke. The not competition wise, but they come in and they say this could be illegal. The exact quote was, the league will face legal and antitrust challenges. Just put it out there that you want to back up Lane Kiffin, who's the most polarizing and the biggest coaching name in your conference and possibly in college football. But yeah, it's just, to me, it's a sad time for the NCAA. We can go deeper into like what has happened during the transfer portal over the past 2 seasons, I would say, and what it's turning into. But again, what were your like initial thoughts when it first happened? Because I know you're equally outraged about the situation.
Yeah, I mean, I never thought we'd see anything like this. I can tell you that. I was on the same page. I think a lot of people were as well. I thought, once you declare for the draft and once you are eligible and you are selected, and again, that's a huge accomplishment, being selected to the NFL, making it to the next level. And then, even to go farther with that, you go to training camp, you do OTAs, you do all this, and then you make it, again, like I said, to training camp and to the preseason, and then you play in those games. There should be no possible way where you're allowed to then, go back a step, go back a level. I just don't understand how this is allowed, how this is happening, how we got here. I understand the way the law works and you can always, bend it a certain ways to favor you, but this is not a good look for anybody. It's not a good look for the NFL. It's not a good look for the NCAA. It's not a good look for the SEC, ACC, Big Ten, everybody that has a part to play in this. It's just not a good look. But it also, again, like we talked about before, when it comes to the Deshaun Watson thing and it being a business, that's what this is too. This is a business decision for these kids, for these organizations, for these colleges and these teams and these coaches. Like you said, Dan Orlovsky, always shout out to him. I love Dan. He said he's like, if Lane Kiffin wouldn't be doing his job if he didn't find, like, if he could find a way to get this kid over here and it would be legal and he's able to do it, like, he wouldn't be doing his job if he didn't try to get that done, which he's doing. Don't get me wrong, but I just don't see how in any part of the bylaws that this is even available as an option. It doesn't make sense to me. And again, you're gonna have a lot of angry people. This is going to open up a lot of doors for other athletes that are going to want to try and do the same thing when they don't make an NFL roster.
Yeah.
And they can go back again. This man, what was this? Daquan Wright was on a field playing football for the Browns the other day, and then in 2 weeks he could be playing in college football game. That does not make sense. It does not sit right with me. And yeah, it's going to come back to hurt them. I can tell you that.
Yeah, it's a snowball effect. It's opening the doors for other players. At this point, too often, I feel like I'm opening my ESPN app or I'm looking at social media and I'm seeing something up like just mind blowing from the college ranks with this transfer portal. It's everybody keeps using the word the Wild West. It's the Wild West out there. Everything goes. It's a free for all for these teams and these players, and we're at a point where we're.
Well,
Go on.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but right now, SEC passes rule to stop NFL, NBA, WNBA players from returning to college.
To stop.
To stop.
That's pressure right there. So
Yes.
that's crazy. That's funny that it broke as we were talking about this.
On.
It,
Talk about time, and that is insane right there. That's good stuff, though. I mean, that pretty much validates what we're trying to say as well. Nobody's happy about this. Nobody wants that to happen. And kudos to the SEC. Now, don't get me wrong. I think it's it does have a lot to do with Lane Kiffin, with it being LSU, and I'm sure these other schools are like, take a step back, kick rocks. This ain't happening. But I'm glad that is a stance that's being made
Yeah.
because I mean the arguments that you and I just talked about. This should never even be a thing. Shouldn't even be a real conversation. And the fact that it is, it sucks. So I'm glad that they did that.
Yeah, the thought is if we allow Lane Kiffin and LSU to make this decision, it's not really the NCAA in power anymore. We're leaving it up to the conferences and the teams to make decisions at this point because the NCAA is scared to get into a legal situation because then the player ends up going to the court. They end up getting reinstated. NCAA has no power. At this point, why do we even have the NCAA? Why don't we just have
unionize them? Just unionize everything. It'll make it much easier for them as well. Obviously, that'll become when you have to do like workers' comp and everything like that. It honestly seems like everything is leaning towards that whatsoever. That they're going to put a cap on everything, especially when it comes to these. They most certainly should. And I think essentially what it is that the NCAA, especially I'm strictly talking football here, is becoming like a minor league.
Yeah.
For where these kids are at, because you're going to have other kids who are just going to stay in college for 4 or 5 years and try and milk as much as they can, knowing that they're probably not going to make it to the show as much as they want to or to the league. But again, there needs to be a cap on these guys.
And when you start getting into the conversation of should there be contracts in place, now I think you're going to get to a point where certain teams can afford certain players. And it's just all those mid-major teams and those lower tier teams in the Big Ten and maybe the SEC, they're not going to be able to keep up anymore. And what's going to happen is the Big Ten's going to hand choose or hand pick what teams they want, like the Notre Dames of the world and whoever else. And then the SEC is going to come in and be like, hey, we're going to take Miami from the ACC. And all these other conferences, when we talk about this is going to be the minor leagues of the NFL, then what happens to those other conferences? Are they essentially, what is the Trenton?
They turn into the Oakland Athletics. That's what happens. They turn into the Oakland Athletics. They're going to have a good farm system come in. We're going to find really good players. Then the other guys are going to come take these guys. They're going to offer them more money, and you're never going to have. It's always going to be. Again, when you want to put it in like the baseball, it's you're going to have the Dodgers, the Yankees, and then everybody else that's up there with the Braves, Houston. The same thing is going to happen in NCAA. You're going to have Bama, LSU, Michigan, Notre Dame, Miami. They're just going to look for these players. They're going to offer them more money, and these kids are going to transfer. It's happening now, but it's just going to get worse unless they start doing something about this. Like how many kids you're allowed to have transfer, how many kids you're allowed to offer NIL a year. Until you can start doing those things, these higher schools that are backed with all these boosters and have all this money, they're just gonna keep spending it until there's rules that are in place.
Why would you enter the NFL draft if you have eligibility? If you're a Riley Leonard who came out last season and said, at Notre Dame, I made more money than my rookie season with the Indianapolis Colts. And that's just going to happen for over 75% of these athletes because outside of if you're a top 10 pick, probably maybe a first round pick, I would say. Outside of that, you're probably making more money in college. So
most certainly, for sure.
The reason you join is just to be at the professional ranks, but is that enough when you're making life-changing money at the college? Like, and not the NFL. Football's not guaranteed. Like tomorrow's not guaranteed. And yeah, you try
one injury away.
But if you're on your rookie contract, you're getting paid peanuts. So why would you want to go through 4 or 5 years of your rookie contract and risk getting injured or not panning out in the NFL and give up money and leave money on the table in the college? But
I want it.
The last thing I want to think about is I don't know if I should feel bad for these players that went through the waiver wire and are now thinking they're eligible for the college football season. And then SEC and other conferences come out and say, no, we're stopping this. So this tight end says, I'm leaving the Browns. He gets cleared on waivers. Like, what NFL team's going to come back and be like, hey, like, I'm going to pick you up and take you on my roster when there's a bunch of other tight ends they probably can take? Because what was he? He was probably going to be like bottom of the depth chart or practice squad. So
Yeah, I mean, he got cut for a reason.
yeah, if you're at that level, then like what makes you think you're not replaceable? There's almost everyone in the NFL is replaceable unless you're a superstar. So it's a tough look for that player. But I almost feel bad if it was Lane Kiffin coming in and being like, hey, like I want you on my squad next year. Why don't you do another year of college? And then this player suits up for one more preseason game and then asks for a release. And now they're kind of blacklisted from the NFL. It sucks.
Unless you have the actual talent, that's how it's gonna go as well. You're gonna have that bad name. It's gonna be like, again, everybody has a brand. What's your brand? His brand is gonna be, you didn't think you were good enough for the NFL. You wanted to go back to college, but now college won't take you. So now you think you're good enough for the NFL again? I don't think so. Now, again, I mean, as soon as you have the talent and somebody sees the tape, you might get the shot. But, take this to another level was last year. A first-round draft pick, Shedeur Stewart from the Bengals. I remember there with his holdout.
Yeah.
He was in conversations of maybe going back to Texas A&M. So, I mean, that was kind of why we almost were in this position last year. But imagine with a first-round draft pick doing this. That's a whole different scenario than a kid that's been able to make an NFL roster.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think with what the SEC just did, it's going to be a domino effect. I think Big Ten, ACC, everybody else is going to do the same exact thing. And we're going to put this to bed real early. Obviously, there's going to be lawsuits involved with this and everything like that. But I think this is going to put to rest sooner than later.
Yeah, it's a shame that we don't have a universal ruling. That it's coming down to conferences picking and choosing if guys can play. Because at the end of the day, that's what this came down to. But that's also what it happened with the Brendan Sorsby situation, where Texas Tech really wanted Sorsby to be their quarterback with good reason, because a good season probably puts him in the first round pick.
Yeah.
But so when he gets cleared by the judge, they're all like, all right, return to practice. You're playing. But the Big 12 teams come in and they say, not so fast, my friend. We're not having you play this season. So like, it's pretty much the conferences because like the players every single time when they want eligibility, they're going to take the NCAA to court and they're most likely going to win because they're going to get some local judge who's probably like Sorsby situation. He gets a Texas judge who's probably wearing a Texas Tech jersey underneath his suit and is ready to bring him back and start the season.
You're not lying, though. It's true.
But yeah, it's a mess. All right, let's move on to topic 3. Do you mind if I start this one off? I'll let you do all the big late season games, all the like first few weeks too. But if you are okay with this, I want to talk about Thanksgiving this year.
Yeah, absolutely, of course. So obviously, this one for us is just the most important regular season games in our opinions.
Yeah.
And we had quite a few on here. Some of them, I think Steve and I both were on the same page, but I think there's also some where we thought where these games were more important than others. For me, I think what we talked about, every Rams and Seahawks game this season is going to be pretty tense. It's going to be pretty awesome. I mean, last year was you couldn't take your eyes off the screen. Both these teams put on a show, and obviously the Seahawks being Super Bowl champions, it's just it's a 2-point conversion away from that being a totally different team. I could see the Rams could have done the same exact thing. They could have ran the table as well, but Rams, Seahawks, it's just going to be fireworks when they see each other. And there's going to be bad blood in the air there as well. So I'm excited for that one. I'll save the next one for Thanksgiving. For me, it's going to be the biggest game for me of this season is going to be Christmas when you have Packers versus Bears. Obviously, I'm a diehard Packers fan. I bleed green and gold. It's just in my blood. There's no taking that back. I will root for these guys day in and day out. It's go pack go 24/7. The Bears are out.
What about I think it's the week after that. I could be wrong, but what about Packers Lions too? That's like 2 straight weeks of meaningful football.
Yeah, Packers Lions. I mean, we swept those boys last year. We'll see. I think the Dan Campbell era is coming to an end, and we'll see how they run Jahmyr Gibbs into the ground. As a defense last year, we actually held him in check quite a bit. So I'm pretty excited about that. But I can't get over what happened with Ben Johnson running his mouth last year, just the way he went about it. I don't like that coach whatsoever.
I forgot about the handshake thing after the game.
The handshake, him going in the locker room saying, fuck that team, fuck that coach. It's just insane. Especially when you go back and look at those games. I'm not making excuses. We did lose those games, but you look back, we left a lot on the field with Romeo Doubs fumbling the onside kick in the second meeting we had against them. I lost that game on Christmas Eve. And then, in the playoffs, just absolutely heartbreaking. Keyshawn Nixon being one of the worst corners I've ever seen besides Kevin King. It's just giving me PTSD, man. So my Christmas is either going to be really good or really sad. I'm really hoping that this defense, Parsons is back. And then again, Jordan Love is going to show every single person this season why he is a top 10
I got a question for you. Are you burning or returning all the Packers gear you get for Christmas this year if they lose?
Oh, bro, I'm gonna be rocking it all. I'm not burning anything. Again, I'll be super sad. I wear my emotions heavy, but I feel very confident that you got to look at this Bears team last year. They won what 6? They're like the 2024 Commanders with Jaden Daniels rookie year. It was incredible rookie season, don't get me wrong, but how many fourth quarter crazy comebacks did that team have? And then last year, they regressed drastically. Daniels was hurt. They just didn't look the same whatsoever. Last year, the Bears did the same thing. Their defense led the league in turnovers and gave the opportunity for their offense to go out there. But Caleb Williams was completing 58%. Now, don't get me wrong. He makes incredible plays. He makes spectacular plays, highlight plays. But, you're not going to have a defense give you that many turnovers. And the injuries that defense is already seeing this year, I definitely see this being a regress season for this Bears team. I hope I'm right, because if I'm wrong, it's going to be a long season. I'm being very angry every Sunday. But as long as we win these 2 games against these boys, I'll be pretty happy with that.
Any other games?
So, I like little ones like this, like the NFC East. Every one of their games is going to be important just because, last season was the first time in however long you've had a back-to-back division champs in the Eagles. I think the Cowboys are going to be pretty electric this season. That offense is fucking built to go. And that defense actually is come along, especially with Downs. Everything that's coming out of camp is just how amazing this kid is.
Yeah.
So as long as he stays healthy. And then, the last one I have on there is just the Panthers-Bucks. Just because, the Bucks last year had just what an incredible start to the season. I think they were 6-1, and somehow they finished missing the playoffs. Just the collapse that happened with injuries and just some of their heartbreaking losses. And then the Panthers, again, they have one hell of a schedule coming up this season. I only have them winning 5 games this season. But they were super surprised last year, especially with the whole Bryce Young experiment, thinking it was coming to an end. To kudos to him, keeping his head down and just keep fighting forward. And, they made the playoffs, and they gave the Rams one hell of a run for their money as well.
Yeah.
Big game what to have, and then obviously we have the Thanksgiving game that's going to be, honestly, I think it's going to be 2 juggernauts going at it with the day before Thanksgiving. I think it's we have Packers Rams.
I have that all. So I wrote it all down because I want to miss the game. So when it came out this year, I couldn't believe my eyes, because a lot of times when Thanksgiving football is happening, you have the traditional team. So were a lot of years where the Lions were bad, and there's been years when the Cowboys have been bad, and then they'll just set up a game where it's like the Cowboys Commanders or something, and then the Bears were bad for a while, so it'd be like the Lions Bears, and you'd just be like, I'm watching football just to watch football on Thanksgiving because this is tradition. But I absolutely love this Thanksgiving slate this year.
Yeah.
I will say, like, I don't know if we'll ever see a Thanksgiving slate like this again. I don't know how they won up it next year, but it starts out with Wednesday, November 25th, which might be the first time the NFL is doing this
I
Thanksgiving
think it is.
game. But it's an excellent idea. Just think about it. You're out with the boys. You're celebrating Thanksgiving Eve. You're having a few cold ones, and you have football on. It's a great way to prepare for a full day of being with family and watching football. And the matchup is incredible, like you said. It's the Rams and the Green Bay Packers. These are two teams from the NFC that are probably two of the favorites from the NFC. So you're just getting a taste of possibly what the NFC Championship game is going to be. So that kicks off the week. And then you go into the Thanksgiving festivities at 12:30 early in the day. You have an NFC North showdown between it was the Bears and the Lions, right? I actually didn't write this one down. 12:30, I think the Lions and Bears. I actually did write it down. It bled into my notes.
Yeah.
Both teams have the weapons to be in the conversation this year, and it's going to be fun to see what Ben Johnson can do with the team. It's going to be fun if Caleb Williams can continue to grow. A little indication of a future topic we're going to have, but we're going to be in a future episode. We're going to talk about the 2025 boom and bust of the first round, and we're going to break it down into different tiers. Just a hint for those who made it this far into the episode, but Colson Loveland's going to be on that list for me, and I think he's in for one of the best tight end seasons this year, and he's a name to watch, especially since they traded DJ Moore. They have three guys who, in my mind, are unproven at this point in Luther Burden, Aroma Dunze, and Colston Loveland, because Loveland came on at the end of the season. So let's see if he can do it for the entire year, which I think he can. But after that,
the other two are injury prone as well. So somebody's probably going to go down where somebody's going to get more of a workload as well. It's a good point on your end.
It could be a Chiefs type offense where you have Caleb Williams as the Mahomes type and then Loveland as the Kelsey, because he's essentially a Kelsey. He's not on the field, even though he has been known to do it. He's not on the field to block anybody. He's on the field to run routes like a receiver.
He's a playmaker.
Yeah, he 100%. And he showed it in the playoffs last year. But after that, at 4:30, it's the Eagles and Cowboys. And Larry, you kind of talked about this. Dallas is probably going to have a bounce back year, which hurts me as a Giants fan, but I think this could be an indication of who's going to win the NFC East. And then we're closing out the Thanksgiving Day. I say Thanksgiving Day with Chiefs and Bills. Pat Mahomes versus Josh Allen.
Man,
and
that's electric.
Oddly enough,
come on.
Listen to this stat. Josh Allen is 5-1 against Mahomes during the regular season. His downfall is he's 0-4 in the playoffs against Mahomes.
Yeah.
But I couldn't believe it. I thought Mahomes got him a few times in the regular season, but Allen's played really well against the Chiefs. And a lot of the playoff losses too, the 0-4, Allen's not the reason for it. And last year too, like when the Bills lost, there were a few like bad interceptions from Allen, but he played pretty well, enough to get them onto the next round against the Broncos, I think. So that's going to be fun because I think with a new coach, the Bills could be something special this season. But that's the reason you make the coaching change, so that you can compete with the Chiefs of the world and make that next step into the Super Bowl. But don't fret. Black Friday has football too. It's the Denver Broncos and the Pittsburgh Steelers, which is another epic club. It's Aaron Rodgers last season. I think a lot of people are high on the Denver Broncos, especially after they made it to the AFC Championship game last year, right, against the Patriots. So
and they did. And they picked up Jalen Waddle, which is fantastic. Him and Cortland Sutton together.
Yeah,
that's something. That's something that could be, as long as Bo Nix could just get that arm live, get them the ball. Those guys are playmakers as well.
Absolutely. So the NFL is kind of stealing the college football world's thunder because that's rivalry week, and there's always big games during rivalry week, including.
So just think about that right there. Just talking about Steve is. You have Wednesday, you literally said the Packers, Rams, and we have that entire Thanksgiving slate while we're all just hanging out with our family, having some drinks again, maybe nursing that hangover a little bit with just some epic football, getting ready to eat that food, maybe taking a quick nap at halftime, waking up, and then you have Bills, Chiefs getting on. Then, like you said, on Black Friday, we have the Broncos and the Steelers. and then the next day we go into rivalry week. Come
God,
on. Talk about a
yes.
football week right there. And then it's chef's kiss. And then you go up and then you have football Sunday coming up and then Monday night football. It is absolutely incredible. It is insane. You have
Bonkers.
5 straight days of just football, beers, and come on, and crab cakes.
That's how Maryland does it.
Yeah,
Man, I'm like drooling by the mouth, not just because we're talking about food.
that got me excited.
Football's around the corner. It's here. I think, previews, it's going to be more about like what actually is happening on the field more than these. We'll have segments throughout the season, but more than these like hypotheticals. But they're always fun. They're always fun during the off season. It keeps the conversation going. But I think in the future we're going to be talking about some previews across the league. We'll do some segments like I talked about. We definitely want to have. We need to come up with a name for that segment because it can't be called Tier Talk because that's what part of my take calls their thing.
Okay,
But
yeah.
it's going to be in tiers, our conversations. So we'll brainstorm some names. We'll go to the drawing board, but I would say that wraps it up.
Maybe you guys, the fans here, you guys are listening. If you guys have any suggestions, bring more
Yeah,
problems. We want to get you involved as well. Pop, like, comment. We'll definitely we'll put it in the conversation, and maybe that'll be the one we use.
yeah. I would love to hear the feedback of what other people have to say. I would say that the games we put down were pretty solid, and you
Yeah,
talked
for
about
sure.
the end of the season game. I would throw in there. I had Chargers at Broncos week 18 on my list as well. I had Ravens at Bengals just because I think if you get a full season of Burrow healthy, that's going to be a decent Bengals team right there. And then
Yeah,
Eagles at Niners. When we're starting to talk about like wild card teams coming into play and like where seeding is, if the Cowboys do have that season you and I were both talking about, the Eagles could be fighting for a spot in the wild card in like a home field game for the wild card round. So that'll be interesting if the Niners have a full season of Brock Purdy. We're not even going to get into their owner, by the way. What a crazy story that
that'll be a
was.
different. Yeah, him and Robert Kraft, they got their own handshake.
Except I think what the Niners guy did, there's no coming back from. That was
Yeah,
just
I think he's actually still spending. He's got one more day in jail. I think he gets out tomorrow. But
crazy.
I think he made a donation to the police department of $186. So kudos to him.
In a trailer park in Ohio, of all places.
Yeah, come on.
Talk about trying to keep it discreet. That's
Yeah,
just
maybe
wild.
not there.
Don't do it in Browns country. Something
No.
bad's gonna happen there. But cool. We have plenty of other topics in mind that we were going to try to get around to this tonight. But actually, even if we had all three of us, I think the conversation would have been long. So the three topics were more than enough. But the great thing about coming with 5, 6, 7 topics is they can carry over to the next episode. So continue to listen. I think we were really pleased with what the YouTube channel is going to transform into. I think I might also get the audio portion out there back on Spotify and Apple, just so if you're driving along in your car or something, you can put it on. So there's going to be multiple spots to catch us on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, among others. But continue to subscribe, support the boys, and we'll be back at you shortly. So, thanks for listening, and we'll catch you soon.
Yeah, absolutely. So under further review, guys, we are just hoping to get more of you guys in here, more subscribers. My boy Scotty G was running his mouth the other day saying that we can't get to 250 by the end of week 1. So let's prove him wrong. We appreciate you guys big time.
250, smash that subscriber button. You have to show
Come
me
on, get there.
Now we got a challenge, Larry. We're gonna have to hit this now.
We're gonna get there. We're gonna do it again. Just the more and more we put out there, but we just want to make sure this is fun for everybody else as well. It's obviously fun that we get to do this, just talk ball, but let us know what are some topics you guys want to hear. We have no problem talking about them and just seeing what we're giving the people what they want.
Definitely. All right. So under further review pod on YouTube, and we'll share it too. And maybe we'll come up with a competition too. We'll have to think about that. But catch you guys soon.
Absolutely.